It is a common outcome for the DP-700. Highly experienced data engineers sitting for the exam, confident in their ability to build fabric solutions, only to find the path to a passing score is far less straightforward than their daily work. The difficulty stems from a shift in perspective. The exam doesn't just ask for a solution that works, it requires the one specific solution that fits Microsoft's defined architectural constraints. Real-world fixes that deviate from these standards are marked as incorrect. When we look at why candidates miss points, we see a clear trend. Most questions offer 3 or 4 answers that are technically functional in a live environment. Because the technical knowledge is there, the 20% bar remains small. The failure usually happens because a candidate chooses a good answer rather than the one answer allowed by the prompt's specific limitations. That's why the impact of distractors is so high. Success depends on identifying the architectural requirements hidden in the prompt, specific terms that instantly narrow the pool of viable tools. Moving away from exhaustive memorization towards an understanding of these architectural priorities is the most efficient way to prepare. It allows you to approach the exam with the same rigor Microsoft used to design it. The most effective filter in the Fabric ecosystem is data velocity. Identifying the speed of the data processing required tells you exactly which branch of the architecture to follow. When you read a scenario, look for the requirement of real-time processing. This is a hard constraint that dictates the rest of your selection process. This architectural branch makes the choice clear. If the prompt specifies a real-time requirement, Azure Data Factory is no longer an option. Azure Data Factory, or ADF, is the platform's primary tool for orchestrating complex data movements, but it is not the tool for this specific requirement. In the context of the DP-700, Data Factory and pipelines are strictly associated with scheduled batch processing. If the data moves in intervals rather than a continuous stream, these are your primary tools. An experienced engineer might consider how to trigger a pipeline every few seconds to mimic a stream, but for the purpose of the exam, that workaround is an incorrect choice. You must respect the tool's defined role. Applying this rigid filter simplifies the exam. A complex, multi-paragraph scenario becomes a binary choice once you identify the data's velocity. Beyond velocity, Microsoft uses specific qualitative language to point toward mandatory architectural components. This matrix shows the direct link between requirements and tools. When a prompt highlights the need for querying, analysis, or efficiency, the solution will involve SQL analytics endpoints and delta tables. If the focus shifts to interactive data exploration or team collaboration, the architectural answer shifts to notebooks. Notebooks are the primary environment for shared, code-based data science and engineering within Fabric. Similarly, if the goal is to handle dynamic or external values, you must select an answer involving parameters. Options that rely on hard-coded variables are intentionally included as distractors to be rejected. Relying on these direct associations reduces the cognitive load during the test. You can confirm the correct tool based on the specific language of the requirement. Fabric includes several transformation engines that appear to overlap in functionality. Choosing the right one requires looking at the technical constraints of the deployment. The primary divider used on the exam is the choice between no-code and code-first development. Following the no-code requirement leads to a specific path. If the scenario involves event streams, the service for capturing and routing high-frequency data, and requires a no-code solution, the event processor is the correct engine. If the requirement is code-first and involves large-scale big data streaming, the engine changes. You would select Spark Structured Streaming, which leverages the Spark engine within a notebook environment. There is a specialized case for KQL databases. If the transformation is happening natively within these environments, you must use Kusto Query Language, or KQL. For scenarios where you need to combine data from different Fabric items, such as a warehouse and a lakehouse, you use a specific SQL command, CTAS. This stands for Create Table as Select and is the standard for cross-item data movement. Recognizing these boundaries keeps you from being misled by distractors. You aren't just looking for a tool that can transform data, you are looking for the one that fits the code-first or no-code constraint of the prompt. While transformation engines handle data in motion, the data modeling section focuses on how data is stored, specifically regarding historical changes. This is the domain of slowly changing dimensions, or SCD. These are standard methods for managing how attributes change over time, and they represent guaranteed points if you know the structural definitions. The most basic types are 0 and 1. Type 0 retrieves the original value, meaning no changes are recorded at all. Type 1 overwrites the existing data, meaning the history is lost the moment a change occurs. If history is a requirement, the structure must expand. Type 2 maintains a full history by adding a new record, or row, for every change. Type 3 tracks only the current and immediately previous value by adding a new column. Type 4 uses a separate physical structure, a history table. This keeps the main table lean, but requires an additional join to reconstruct the full timeline. These definitions are static. Because they don't change based on the complexity of the scenario, mastering them provides a high return on your study time. Finally, the exam covers fabric administration. The core challenge here is balancing centralized control with the need to delegate tasks to specific business units. For questions regarding domain-level delegation, there is a specific 3-step implementation sequence. First, you assign the workspace to a domain. Second, you delegate the tenant settings. Third, you specify the domain admins. When you see a security requirement stating that users should not see anything in a specific column, you are being directed toward column-level security and data masking. If the prompt describes moving individual pieces of content between development and production environments rather than an entire workspace, you must select selective pipelines. In troubleshooting scenarios, if a data refresh is failing or running significantly longer than expected, the most common culprit is an outdated on-premises gateway version. These administrative questions aren't looking for general theories on security. They are looking for the exact names of features and the correct sequence of the UI steps. With these architectural priorities established, you can now allocate your study time based on where it will generate the most points. This quadrant chart highlights the high-yield areas. Mapping specific requirements to tools and memorizing SCD types are low-effort tasks that guarantee points because their definitions are absolute. On the other hand, trying to memorize every menu in the UI or mastering deep Spark syntax represents a low return. These topics are time-consuming to learn and appear less frequently on the exam. Passing the DP-700 is about resource management, focusing on the high-impact rules and avoiding the high-effort traps. If your exam is just a few days away, prioritize the real-time versus batch filter. That single distinction will help you eliminate more incorrect answers than any other technique. If you have more time, master the specific constraints of the 4 transformation engines. Understanding the code-first versus no-code boundary will help you navigate the most complex scenario questions. Most importantly, do not try to fix the exam prompts with real-world workarounds. The DP-700 is not a test of your personal engineering style. It is a test of your ability to implement Microsoft's idealized vision for the Fabric ecosystem. Stick to the constraints, and you'll find the path to a passing score.